Grief is a peculiar and silent realm. When you find yourself within it, the outside world seems to blur and retreat. Its vibrancy diminishes and sounds become faint echoes. In that desolate place, the only constant you cling to is the love of your family, who you anticipate will serve as your steadfast anchor amid the chaos. However, what unfolds when your family deems your grief as an inconvenience? What transpires when they opt to celebrate a birthday party rather than attending the funeral of the man you cherished, someone who was both a son and a brother to them? In that moment, you experience a betrayal so profound that it creates a new void within you. My family made that choice. They prioritized my sister's celebration over my husband's farewell. They believed they were merely avoiding an uncomfortable afternoon, unaware that my husband Liam had recognized their true nature long before I did. They also did not comprehend that in his final act of love for me, it equipped me with a means of reclaiming what would soon be taken from them. Liam was the love of my life, a sentiment that may seem cliched, yet it remains the truest assertion I can make. Our first encounter took place in a bustling coffee shop, a quintessential movie moment where he accidentally spilled a latte on my book. He possessed brilliance and humor, coupled with a warmth that enveloped those around him like the glow of a fire. A successful architect, he crafted both stunning and enduring structures. But the most magnificent creation he ever built was the life we shared. He perceived me in a way that no one else ever could. He understood my quiet disposition, my passion for literature, and my yearning for tranquility. He was my safe haven. In contrast, my family never truly grasped who Liam was, or perhaps they simply chose not to. My parents and my older sister, Chloe, are loud and forceful personalities. Their lives are characterized by grandiosity and drama, consistently revolving around themselves. Chloe, the radiant sun in our family constellation, is a highly successful event planner, beautiful and charismatic, always demanding the limelight. My parents have long been enamored with her, accommodating her every desire and celebrating even her most minor accomplishments as though she were a groundbreaking pioneer. I was the quieter moon, existing in her shadow, the responsible and steady sister who never made a stir. Liam, with his gentle nature and indifference to their theatrics, was viewed as an outsider. While they were polite, they treated him as if he were a temporary fixture in their grand family narrative. Liam witnessed it all. He noticed how they would interrupt me mid-sentence, how their eyes would glaze over when I shared my experiences as a librarian, and how every family gathering inevitably morphed into the Chloe showcase. While he never confronted them, he acknowledged it silently. Later, at home, he would envelop me in his arms and whisper, "I see you, Ames. I always see you." He became my shield, a buffer against the thoughtless cruelty of their self-centeredness. He created a sanctuary for us, a peaceful refuge where I felt not only loved but genuinely recognized, our most cherished possession. The embodiment of everything Liam built for us was the Cova, stunning expanse of waterfront property that had been in his family for generations. It featured a historic main house, a quaint guest cottage, a small marina, and sprawling woodlands. This place was our retreat, yet my family was acutely aware of its substantial value. They regarded the Cove not for its beauty or historical significance, but for its monetary worth. My father often joked about the lucrative subdivision they could develop there, while Chloe envisioned hosting opulent weddings in the main house. Further expanding her event planning empire, their desire for the property was a constant undercurrent. At every family dinner, Liam despised it. "They look at our home and all they see are dollar signs," he once told me, his voice laced with an unusual anger. "They fail to recognize the history, the memories. They don't see us." Then tragedy struck. A car accident involving a drunk driver who ran a red light shattered my world with one phone call. Liam was gone. The shock hit me like a physical force, a wave that swept away my breath and left me gasping in the aftermath of this new, desolate reality. The subsequent days turned into a haze of paperwork, phone calls, and an all-encompassing grief that felt like a weight pressing heavily on my chest. Throughout it all, my family was present, but not truly there. They came to my home, of course, my mother bustling about, tidying things that required no tidying, her energy frantic and misplaced. My father offered clumsy condolences, while Chloe primarily occupied herself with phone calls to plan a high-profile charity event. Her voice a jarring note of triviality in my house of mourning. They offered me platitudes masquerading as comfort, urging me to remain strong and keep busy. They were unable to tolerate the silence. My grief was too quiet, too profound, too inconvenient for them. It clashed with their loud, fast-paced existence. The funeral was set for Saturday, a day dedicated to honoring the remarkable man I had lost. However, the day before, my family gathered in my living room, the very space designed by Liam, filled with his memory. "Amelia, honey," my mother began, her tone gentle yet resolute. "We need to discuss tomorrow." "What about it?" I replied. My voice hoarse from tears. Chloe interjected, ever the efficient planner. "As you know, Sunday is my 30th birthday, and we have planned a big party for Saturday night. All the deposits have been made, the caterer, the band, the venue, 150 people are coming. We can't just cancel it." I simply stared at them, unable to comprehend what I was hearing. "Want to throw a party on the night of my husband's funeral?" "It's not ideal timing," my father admitted, attempting to sound reasonable. "But it's Chloe's big 30th birthday. It's a milestone, and people are flying in for it. Rescheduling would be a nightmare." "The funeral is at 11 a.m., Chloe chimed in brightly, as if this somehow resolved everything. "The party doesn't start until 8 p.m. There's plenty of time. We can attend the funeral to show our support and then head to the party." The casual, callous manner in which they discussed it, treating Liam's funeral as just another inconvenient appointment to endure before the main event, made me feel physically ill. "I don't understand," I whispered. "How can you even think about a party right now?" That's when my mother delivered the line that would haunt me for years. "Darling," she said, placing a hand on my arm that felt cold and heavy. "We know you're sad, but you can't expect the whole world to stop. You're being a little overly dramatic about this. Liam wouldn't want you to wallow. He'd want us to celebrate life. It's overly dramatic." My husband was dead. My world had collapsed, and I was being told I was being overly dramatic. They weren't merely dismissing my grief. They were judging it. They were suggesting that my profound, soul-crushing sorrow was an inappropriate overreaction. They expected me to shrink my grief, to make it more convenient so it wouldn't interfere with their social calendar. I can't believe this. Huh? Rising to my feet, my entire body trembling. "I need you tomorrow. I need my family." "And we will be there," Chloe insisted, her voice rising with frustration. "We'll be at the funeral, but we're also going to my party. It's not fair to ask me to cancel my 30th birthday. It's not my fault this happened," and there it was. She had made it all about herself. My husband's death was merely an inconvenience ruining her birthday weekend. I looked at my parents, silently pleading for them to intervene, to recognize the madness of what they were suggesting. But they only looked at Chloe with sympathy. My quiet grief couldn't compete with her loud, demanding celebration. I felt utterly outnumbered. "Double quotes fine," I said, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. "Go to your party." I turned and walked out of the room, away from them and their suffocating selfishness. The next day they were present at the funeral. They occupied the front row, my mother sobbing theatrically, my father looking stern and somber, and Chloe elegantly dressed in a black designer gown. They performed the role of a grieving, supportive family flawlessly. They accepted condolences on my behalf and hugged me tightly, whispering, "We're here for you." It was all a facade. I knew that as soon as the service ended, they would. return home, shed their black attire, and trade it for party dresses. They would toast with champagne and dance the night away while I remained at home, suffocated by the silence left by Liam's absence. They didn't even attend the small gathering at my house afterward. Thing had to get ready. That night was the loneliest of my life. Sitting in our vast empty house, I clutched Liam's photo, the sounds of the outside world feeling millions of miles away. I envisioned them at the party, filled with music and laughter, my sister blowing out the candles on her cake. In that moment, I felt a new kind of grief. Grief not only for my husband, but for the family I thought I had. I realized I was truly, utterly alone. The following 2 weeks passed in a fog. I barely ate or slept. I merely existed. Then I received a call from Liam's lawyer, Mr. Davis. He was a kind, elderly man who had been Liam's trusted advisor for years. He informed me that it was time for the will to be read and asked if I wanted my family present. A month ago, I would have answered yes without a second thought. Now, however, I felt a chill of dread at the mere suggestion. But I knew. They expected to be there. They were family after all, and they were well aware of the value of Liam's assets. So I told him yes. On the morning of the reading, they arrived together at the lawyer's office, presenting a united front. Once again, they wore somber expressions, their party masks replaced with looks of gentle concern for me, the poor widow. Chloe even brought me a coffee. The gesture felt so hollow that it bordered on insulting. We sat in Mr. Davis's stately, wood-paneled office, the air thick with tense anticipation. My family believed they understood what was coming. They assumed Liam, being the traditional and responsible man he was, would have a straightforward everything left to me, of course, as his wife. But they also assumed, as they had often hinted, that he would have named my father or my sister as the executor of the estate, or perhaps as a trustee, giving them a measure of control and a foot in the door to the fortune they had long coveted. They regarded this meeting as the first step toward their eventual takeover of the Cove. Mr. Davis cleared his throat and put on his glasses. I looked at me with a kind, sad smile. "Amelia," he said gently, "Liam was very specific in his instructions. He loved you very much." He then turned to my family, and his expression became formal and unreadable. "This is the last will and testament of Liam Harrison." He began to read. As expected, the initial items included the house, savings, and investments Saul left to me, his beloved wife. My parents and Chloe listened patiently, nodding along. This was merely the preamble. They were waiting for the part that involved them. And now, Mr. Davis said, turning a page, we come to the matter of the commercial properties and assets held under the Harrison Development Corporation, which includes the property known as the Cove. This was it. I watched my father lean forward slightly, and Chloe set down her coffee cup. This was the main event. Liam was very clear about his wishes for the Cove. The lawyer continued. He understood how much it meant to the family. He glanced at my parents and sister, and Chloe shot me a triumphant smirk. Believing her moment had finally arrived, convinced Liam had recognized her superior business acumen. Therefore, Mr. Davis stated, his voice steady and clear, control of the Harrison Development Corporation and all its assets, including the Cove, is to be placed in a trust. Liam has named a sole trustee with absolute and indisputable authority over all decisions regarding the sale, development, or management of the properties. He paused, looking directly at my family. And that sole trustee is Amelia. Oh. Silence in the room was deafening. Chloe's smirk vanished, replaced by an expression of slack-jawed disbelief. My father merely stared, his face a blank mask of shock. They couldn't process it. Quiet, impractical me, the librarian, now in charge of a multi-million-dollar development corporation. It felt impossible. But that wasn't the bombshell. That was merely the fuse being lit. However, Mr. Davis continued, his voice dropping slightly. Liam also included a specific and legally binding addendum to the trust, a set of conditions that the trustee must follow. He referred to it as the family clause. He picked up a separate sealed envelope and instructed me to open and read this clause only if certain family members were present at this reading. He looked at my parents and sister. As you are all here, I am legally obligated to read it. Breaking the seal, he unfolded the single sheet of paper within. As he began to read the words of my deceased husband, those words were poised to rise from the grave and deliver a reckoning so precise, so personal, and so devastating that it would transform all of our lives forever. The air in Mr. Davis's office was thick with shock and anticipation. I felt as if I could reach out and touch it. My family was still reeling from the news that I, quiet, bookish, impractical me, had been granted sole control over the Cove and all of Liam's business assets. They regarded me as if for the first time, their minds struggling to reconcile the timid girl they thought they knew with the formidable woman Liam's will had just forged, but their shock was about to morph into something far more visceral. Mr. Davis held the single sheet of paper from the sealed envelope. The addendum Liam had titled The Family Clause. And the final act of our story began. As per Liam's instructions, Mr. Davis said, his voice a steady, solemn drumbeat. I will now read the clause aloud. It begins to my wife's family, the Millers. If you are hearing these words, it means you have shown up to the reading of my will, no doubt expecting to be rewarded for your familial connection. I have known you for 10 years. In that time, I have witnessed your love of money, your hunger for status, and your profound, almost pathological self-absorption. I have also witnessed your casual disregard for the most brilliant woman I have ever known, your own daughter and sister, Amelia. I watched as my father's face hardened, a deep, angry flush creeping up his neck. Chloe's look of disbelief morphed into one of pure, venomous fury. My mother appeared confused, as if struggling to comprehend why Liam would say such hurtful things. Mr. Davis continued reading Liam's words. I have seen you talk over her, ignore her, and treat her life's passions as trivial, childish hobbies. You have benefited from her kindness and her quiet nature for her entire life, taking her for granted because she never demanded the attention your other daughter so desperately requires. You have failed to see the incredible woman standing right in front of you, but I saw her. I saw her strength, her integrity, her brilliant mind. And because I saw her, I also saw you for what you truly are. It was breathtaking. Liam, my gentle, non-confrontational husband, was speaking more directly and honestly from beyond the grave than he ever had in life. He was giving voice to every frustration, every small hurt, every moment of casual neglect I had endured. Even now, he was defending me. The lawyer's voice remained unwavering. I always knew that if anything ever happened to me, your grief would be performative and your actions would be selfish. Therefore, I created a small test, a final observation. I instructed my lawyer, Mr. Davis, to note the date of my funeral. I also instructed him to make a quiet inquiry into the social engagements of the Miller family on that same day. Chloe went rigid in her chair, and my mother's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine panic breaking through her confusion. They knew what was coming. My funeral, the day my wife buried her husband, was overlooked in favor of a social celebration, specifically my sister-in-law Chloe's birthday party. Then the following conditions are to be met immediately. It is my belief that such an act would represent a final, unforgivable act of disrespect not to me, but to the woman I love. It would prove that your priorities lie not with family in a time of crisis, but with your own selfish desires. Therefore, as a consequence of this choice, you will forfeit any and all claim to the legacy I have built. Mr. Davis looked up from the page, his gaze sweeping over my family. I can confirm, he said in a flat, professional tone, that the funeral of Liam Harrison was held on Saturday, October 14th. I can also confirm that a 30th birthday party for Chloe Miller was held on the evening of the same day, and that Mr. and Mrs. Miller and Miss Chloe Miller were in attendance. It was a judge delivering a verdict, a death sentence. Chloe let out a small, strangled gasp. "This is insane," she sputtered, looking at the lawyer. "You can't do that." Vindictive. "It is, I assure you, perfectly legal," Mr. Davis replied calmly. "Liam worked with me on this clause for over a year. 'Tis ironclad, and it continues." He looked back down at the page. Condition 1. The Miller family is to be immediately and permanently barred from setting foot on the property known as the Cove. They are not to enter the main house, the guest cottage, or any part of the grounds for any reason. Any attempt to do so will be considered trespassing, and my trustee, Amelia, is instructed to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. The Cove, their future wedding venue, their dream subdivision gone, wiped away with a single sentence. Condition 2. My father-in-law, Robert Miller, is a partner in a small investment firm that my company, Harrison Development, has a significant financial stake in. As of the reading of this clause, my trustee, Amelia, is instructed to immediately divest all of Harrison Development's holdings from his firm. She is to withdraw all capital effective immediately. My father made a choking sound. I knew from conversations Liam and I had shared that Harrison Development's investment was the only thing keeping his struggling firm afloat. Liam had invested as a gesture of goodwill, one my father had taken for granted. Without that capital, his business would collapse within months. Condition 3. Mr. Davis continued, his voice relentless. My sister-in-law, Chloe Miller, runs an event planning company. Harrison Development currently holds the exclusive and very lucrative contract for all corporate events for a portfolio of 6 of my architectural firm's largest clients. This contract was granted as a professional courtesy. As of the reading of this clause, that contract is terminated. My trustee, Amelia, is instructed to find a new event planning partner. Chloe looked as though she might be physically sick. At that moment, I knew that contract represented over half of her company's annual revenue. It was the prestigious, high-profile work that had built her reputation. Losing it wouldn't merely cost her money. It would shatter her brand. Finally, the lawyer read, and I could hear the finality in Liam's written words. My mother-in-law, Alina Miller, has long been the chair of the board for the City Children's Hospital Charity, a position she values greatly for its social standing. I have been the charity's largest anonymous donor for the past 5 years, with my contributions making up the bulk of their operating budget. My trustee, Amelia, is instructed to cease all future donations to that charity under my name or any other, and to redirect those funds to a new charity of her choosing. She is also instructed to send a letter to the board of directors, which I have pre-written, explaining the reason for this change in philanthropic strategy. My mother sat there, silent tears streaming down her face. Liam had identified the one thing she cared about more than money, her social status. He knew that when the funding dried up, the board would find a new chair, someone who could attract the big donors. He was taking away her crown. Mr. Davis placed the paper down on his desk. The room fell silent, save for my mother's quiet sobs. Liam hadn't just written a will. He had executed a surgical strike. He had pinpointed the one thing each of them valued most: property, money, status, reputation. He had taken it away. He had used his power not only to protect me, but to hold them accountable for a lifetime of small cruelties and one final unforgivable betrayal. He had seen them for who they were, and now he was ensuring that they finally saw me. This is ridiculous. My father exploded, his face flushed with rage. We'll fight this. We'll contest the will. On what grounds? Mr. Davis asked, his voice calm and steady. That Liam was not of sound mind? I have a psychiatric evaluation from 2 months before his passing stating he was perfectly lucid. You claim he was unduly influenced by whom? He wrote this clause with me in secret. You have no legal standing. Liam's instructions are clear, specific, and legally binding. My family turned to me then, their eyes brimming with a desperate, pleading fury. For the first time in my life, they needed something from me. I held all the cards. Amelia, honey, my mother began, her voice thick with tears. You can't let this happen. We're your family. You should have thought of that, I replied, my voice quiet but as unyielding as steel. You should have thought of that on the day of my husband's funeral when you were deciding which dress to wear to a party. I stood up. Sir Davis? I said, please begin executing the conditions of the trust immediately. Divest from my father's firm this afternoon. Send the contract termination notice to my sister's company by the end of the day. And please mail the letter to the hospital charity board tomorrow morning. I will handle the trespassing notices for the Cove myself. Of course, Amelia, he said with a respectful nod. I walked out of that office without looking back, leaving them to sit in the ruins of the world they had built on a foundation of selfishness. The following weeks were a whirlwind. My father's firm, as predicted, spiraled into a death spiral. Chloe lost her biggest clients and was forced to lay off half her staff. Her reputation as the city's top planner lay in tatters. My mother was quietly asked to step down as chair of the charity board after the hospital's funding was slashed. The fallout was swift, brutal, and complete. They tried to call me, of course, dozens of times. So they sent long, rambling emails alternating between furious threats and pitiful apologies. I didn't respond to any of them. Their words held no power over me anymore. Instead, I focused on my new life. I took over Harrison Development and discovered a knack for a 10 understated competence that Liam had always seen in me. I didn't sell the Cove. I did the opposite. I utilized the company's resources to transform the Woodland Acres into a protected nature preserve, ensuring it could never be developed. I initiated a scholarship program in Liam's name for young aspiring architects. I found a new purpose and a newfound strength I never knew I possessed. The revenge wasn't in the money or the power. It was in the silence. It was in the knowledge that they finally understood what they had lost. Oh, they hadn't just lost access to a fortune, they had lost their daughter. My husband, in his final beautiful act of love, hadn't just given me his wealth, he had given me my freedom. He held up a mirror to my family and forced them to finally see themselves. And he granted me the power to walk away from that reflection. For that, I will be forever grateful. This contract was granted as a professional courtesy. As of the reading of this clause, that contract is terminated. My trustee, Amelia, is instructed to find a new event planning partner. Chloe looked as though she might vomit. I knew that. Contract represented over half of her company's annual revenue. It was the prestigious, high-profile work that had built her reputation. Losing it wouldn't merely cost her money. It would shatter her brand and dignity. Finally, the lawyer continued reading, and I could hear the finality in Liam's words. My mother-in-law, Alina Miller, has long been the chair of the board for the City Children's Hospital Charity. It's a position she values greatly for its social standing. I have been the charity's largest anonymous donor for the past 5 years, with my contributions making up the bulk of their operating budget. My trustee, Amelia, is instructed to cease all future donations to that charity under my name or any other and to redirect those funds to a new charity of her choosing. She is also instructed to send a letter to the board of directors, which I have pre-written, explaining the reason for this change in philanthropic strategy. My mother sat there, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Liam had pinpointed the one thing she valued more than anything else, her social status. He understood that when the funding dried up, the board would seek a new chair, someone capable of attracting the major donors. He was stripping away her crown. Mr. Davis placed the paper down on his desk. The room fell silent, save for my mother's quiet sobs. Liam hadn't merely written a will. He had executed a surgical strike. He had identified what each of them held. Dear property, money, status, reputation, and he had taken it away. He had wielded his power not only to protect me, but to hold them accountable for a lifetime of small cruelties and one final, unforgivable betrayal. He had seen them for who they truly were, and now he was ensuring they finally saw me. This is ridiculous. My father finally exploded, his face flushed with rage. "We'll fight this. We'll contest the will." "On what grounds?" Mr. Davis asked, his voice calm and steady. "That Liam was not of sound mind. I have a psychiatric evaluation from 2 months before his passing, stating he was perfectly lucid. You claim he was unduly influenced by whom? He wrote this clause with me in secret. You have no legal standing. Liam's instructions are clear, specific, and legally binding." My family turned to me then, their eyes filled with a desperate, pleading fury. For the first time in my life, they needed something from me. I held all the cards. "Amelia, honey," my mother began, her voice thick with tears. "You can't let this happen. We're your family. You should have thought of that," I replied, my voice quiet but as unyielding as steel. "You should have thought of that on the day of my husband's funeral when you were deciding which dress to wear to a party." I stood up. "Mr. Davis," I said, "please begin executing the conditions of the trust immediately. Divest from my father's firm this afternoon. Send the contract termination notice to my sister's company by the end of the day. And please mail the letter to the hospital charity board tomorrow morning. I will handle the trespassing notices for the Cove myself." "Course, Amelia," he replied with a respectful nod. I walked out of that office without looking back, leaving them to sit amid the ruins of the world they had constructed on a foundation of selfishness. The following weeks were a whirlwind. My father's firm, as predicted, spiraled into a death spiral. Chloe lost her largest clients and was forced to lay off half her staff. Her reputation as the city's top planner lay in tatters. My mother was quietly asked to resign as chair of the charity board after the hospital's funding was slashed. The fallout was swift, brutal, and complete. They tried to call me, of course, dozens of times. They sent long, rambling emails alternating between furious threats and pathetic apologies. I didn't respond to any of them. Their words held no power over me anymore. Instead, I focused on my new life. I took over Harrison Development and discovered a knack for IT and understated competence that Liam had always seen in me. I didn't sell the Cove. I did the opposite. I utilized the company's resources to transform the Woodland Acres into a protected nature preserve, ensuring it could never be developed. I initiated a scholarship program in Liam's name for young, aspiring architects, found a new purpose and a newfound strength I never knew I possessed. The revenge wasn't in the money or the power. It was in the silence. It was in the knowledge that they finally understood what they had lost. They hadn't just lost access to a fortune, they had lost their daughter. My husband, in his final beautiful act of love, hadn't just given me his wealth, he had given me my freedom. He held up a mirror to my family and forced them to finally see themselves. And he granted me the power to walk away from that reflection. For that, I will be eternally grateful.